Welcome to Local Football Flavor. Today's episode is all about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville is coming off that huge win against the LA Chargers, where everyone wrote them off at halftime, down 28-3. But guess what? They move on in the playoffs, and the Chargers don't. Welcome to Jacksonville. And our guest today is Brandon Morin. Many of you may know him now as Jagsurtdomus. He's the guy who called out everything before this season started. Jacksonville's going to make the playoffs. That game against Tennessee, the last game of the year, is going to matter. Jacksonville's not going to be packing their bags and golfing in the middle of November. They're going to be playing relevant football, and that's what we're talking about today. Jacksonville Jaguars football.
Welcome to Local Football Flavor, where we talk to local fans to get the real information of what's going on with their team.
And welcome, team players. So, Brent, let's get right into it. Last year, Jacksonville is, they're the joke of the universe with the worst coach in possibly NFL history. And I want to start with what life was and the journey to get to where we're at.
Yeah, it was hell. So it was maybe I would say in terms of I'm ranking worst seasons as a fan. Watching from this team for about 20 years, I would say this is top three. It was really bad from top to bottom. I think it really irked me just the way we went about selecting the coach. We didn't really even interview anybody. We went just straight to the hire. It was a top decision. It was kind of like the writing was on the wall as soon as the season was over and we moved on from Doug Marrone, that is. That we were just going to go straight for Urban Meyer. That was a Shad Khan decision. I think a lot of the fans were initially at first excited because they thought we could replicate some success from previous years that he had with Ohio State and Florida and things like that. But I think what doesn't get talked enough about this hire was that a lot of the former players that was coached by Urban Meyer, and then some that had interactions with him. I think rest in peace, Uche Nwaneri. He's a former Jags player, who passed away not too long ago. He was calling that out a while ago as well, saying that this is going to be an awful hire. We're not going to be an organized team. We're not going to be ready on Sundays. Game management, situational football, all that knowledge with this hire is going to be kind of, and especially considering we were a young team, it's going to be amplified in terms of all the mistakes we're going to make. And sure enough, we were making horrible penalties in the first 3 weeks of the game. And then we just had, from that point on, scandal after scandal after scandal internally. And, I don't even want to get started with some things that happen off the field too. There's a bunch of memes about that. But from what I understand on what was going on inside the building, we were here, at least, I guess, fans, we were hearing through, multiple media sources, not obviously through official Jaguars.com, beat writers, but through other sources that, it was very commonplace for, Urban Meyer to get up in arms and just start calling out players in the middle of, tape review, things like that, and just really just belittling, each of the players that were on the team. And that's not how you build a winning culture. It's not how you build a team environment. And what really irked me about that more than anything, and fans are going to disagree with me on this because of our most recent success, is I put a lot of blame on Trent Baalke for this. Other people are giving him credit for how well we've turned around this year. But I look at it like this. If you're in a company, right, and your leadership sees that a guy who's kind of wrecking the whole situation for the whole organization, nobody's happy to be there. We're not performing well. People aren't, even getting better in their development. If all of this is not happening, as a GM, I feel like that's when you step in to say, hey, we got to do something about this. We got to bring it in. We got to let the owner know. We have to take some form of action. And it wasn't until there was I don't know if there was NFL Players Association or what it was exactly, but one of the kickers we had, Josh Lambo, he filed a complaint saying that the coach kicked him when he missed a field goal in warmups. He literally went up and just kicked him. And I'm just like, wait a minute. Why isn't this talked about from a GM standpoint? We can't be having this in the building. This is not how professional organizations are run. This is not college. These guys aren't kids. They're grown men, especially if it's me. Like if I'm playing for this team, I'd be like, I don't want to play here. Like the coach is kicking the people I work with, belittling players. Like this is not how we get better as a team. This is not how we scheme things open. Just the cohesiveness of working together, giving feedback. If a coach belittles me, why should I speak up and say, look, coach, this isn't working. This is some suggestions I have of how we can get somebody open or make a play happen defensively or offensively. So it was just really bad from on the side, if you hear all these things and then mimic the performances we had in line with that, it just was a disaster. I felt really horrible and bad as a fan for the players. I wouldn't want any, player to go through that, let alone any Jaguars player that, plays hard for the city and for the team. So I don't blame a lot of people for wanting to get out, give up on the season, leave, but that's kind of where we were. We gave up halfway through the season. We were just uncompetitive in most games, and it showed. There was no offensive creativity. Darrell Bevell was, I guess, given an insurmountable task, if you will, with that incompetent head coach who, how is he going to game plan if the coach, takes a back seat? He didn't even know some of the players' names. He would call them wrong names in interviews with local media, just like he doesn't even know his own players. So he was just an absentee coach, a figurehead. He didn't have any real knowledge when it comes to, in between the lines, the X's and O's, and it showed. And, I'm happy we moved on from the entire staff, basically. We really needed a clean house, and I thought we would do so with, getting rid of Trent Baalke. But, we decided to keep him. Turns out, I guess that was the right decision. I still blame him for not having, the moral grounds to stick up for the players when they were going through that tough season, to bring it to the coach's attention or the owner's attention earlier. So, it was really tough to watch. I'm not going to lie. I almost wanted to stop watching, but I love this team. So obviously I'll always watch.
Building off that, Brandon, when you heard that Doug Pederson was going to become the new head coach, what were your feelings as a fan, knowing what he did for the organization of Philadelphia and how he left the organization and how they left him? How did you feel knowing that you had a really competent young quarterback, if not excellent, if not amazing young quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, and you drafted and your tailback was, healthy again? How did you feel about the coaching hire, and did you expect? I know the tweet was going around, and it was tweeted from the Jaguars Twitter page about your predictions earlier on in the season. What led you to believing that the Jaguars would turn it around, and was that because of the hire of Doug Pederson?
So when I really knew that we were going to be competitive this year was the last game of the season. This was after Urban Meyer had already been fired midway through the season. It was our last game against the Colts to close our season out. And we had a very, very dominant victory. And a lot of people were talking about how talented that Colts roster was. And we just, from top to, defense, offense, every position top down, you could see the talent show and the capability and the potential show. I felt like, wow, where has this been kind of all season? So I didn't have any doubt in terms of the talent the team had at that point. I knew that, obviously we had some holes. We were a horrible team, by the way, earlier in the year. There was some deficiencies where we were lacking, but I don't think people realize we had the most cap space amongst any team going into that offseason. We had a lot of high draft picks and part of that was from players that we've traded in years past. So we went with a really efficient route in terms of trying to find guys who fit the system when Doug was hired. I was, and this is going to shock some people, I actually wasn't completely sold on Doug Pederson originally when that was announced. Okay. Yeah, because I was a little bit more of I was a proponent after the season ended that a lot of the fans lost pride in the team. They were, the clown movement and all that. And a name that was thrown around at the time, and albeit, it's probably a decision that I'm happy. We're all happy wasn't made. Was the name Byron Leftwich was interviewing, I guess, in competition with Doug Pederson for the job. So I was on the train of you know what, let's do that. Let's bring some kind of nostalgia back to the team. Let's get people excited again. He was a former player. He was a quarterback himself. At that point in time, the Bucs had a pretty good offense. One would argue, and I'm like, you know what, this is something a lot of fans could look forward to next season. So I was kind of on that train originally, but when it was announced it was going to be Doug Pederson, I thought, wow, okay, let me take a step back. I don't know, again, I'm not a big follower of the NFC, but I did my research. I looked into Doug and what he ran in Philly, and the pedigree of who he learned under. And based on what I saw, and especially when the year he had success and they went to the Super Bowl, it was a lot of quick game, a lot of quick reads. And when I saw Trevor Lawrence play in college, and I watched his tape when he was going through the draft, I thought to myself, I was like, wow, this kind of scheme of what he has in mind and what Trevor did really, really well in college, which made him a top, quarterback coming into the draft. It's kind of goes hand in hand, and this is going to be perfect. A lot of read option, a lot of quick game, and we got the players in free agency to match that. We got Christian Kirk, who's a great, savvy, smart slot receiver who could also play outside at times. Evan Ingram, a tight end mismatch. He's a very, very fast, athletic tight end. Doesn't get enough credit for what he can do in the quick game and creating separation. And then, because we lost DJ Chark over the offseason, a lot of people were thinking, well, we need a deep line speed threat. And, we got Zay Jones to kind of be that guy. And, we still had some veterans like Marvin Jones on the team that we kind of retained and some things like that. So, there was a lot of positives to say, okay, it's not like a star-studded wide receiver room. Like, you're not going to compare them to the Bengals or, the Bills or teams like that. But for what they're trying to do offensively, it's exactly what they're looking for. And that's why you've seen in the recent weeks, as they've kind of gotten used to and accustomed to the system that Doug's trying to incorporate on the offensive side of the ball, you're seeing a lot of success for those three players. I think they've scored, at least two of the three have scored a touchdown almost in every game the past 6 weeks. So it's really paying off now. And, they're threatening. A lot of people are starting to see the potential of the offense, which is, gonna scare some teams, to be honest. So
and one of the things that I liked about the way that you guys are operating, or at least the season's gone on. So you guys start off winning 3 out of the first 4, then you get into a little bit of divot. And the way that I saw watching the tape of you guys early in the year, it came across to me that before offenses had their game plans implemented, because you can't really practice enough during spring training, during training camp, to get your offenses fully motivated, and so many quarterbacks take time off, etc. Your defense was just full of raw freaks that are just drafted super high, and you guys were able to take care of business early in the season. And then as offense got implemented, it seemed that the edge that your defense had eroded. And my fear was like, oh, this is going to be like that year where they went 1-15, they won early, and then didn't do anything again, and that they're just destined to be bad. And maybe the Colts are really bad, which that part ended up being true at least. But what I wanted to get into is there had to be a moment of here we go again somewhere around Halloween-ish when it was looking like, oh no, like what's going on here? And then the flip switched within this season. So is that an accurate analysis, and kind of like how did that feel as a fan base?
Yeah, no, there's some truth to that. And in the beginning of the season, the games we lost. I actually blame Trevor Lawrence for the reasons why we lost. He's a great, obviously he's a great player. He's playing outstanding right now. I mean, outside of the first half against the Chargers, which was pretty hard to watch, to be honest with you. But he was the reason why we were losing. It wasn't, watching things back. I mean, he had missed a lot of open receivers in the first couple of weeks. And I think it was really just a timing issue, a mechanics issue. The protections were, I guess, at the beginning of the year, we had very shaky protection, and that could be because we brought in Brandon Scherf. We have a rookie center in place, so obviously maybe that rookie center is going to have some difficulties, calling out, okay, this is where the blitz is coming, this is the, etc. So it was tough. He was put in a very tough situation, and that maybe also impacted how he delivered the ball as well. But nonetheless, this is on the quarterback, the center, the O-line. They're responsible for how the offense executes when it comes to the passing game. And the receivers were open. You watch, I think it was all 22, where you could see the offense and defense from not the side view, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The receivers were getting open. He had throws that were there. And if you watch the interviews back, he'll say, I missed, Zay on this one, or I missed Kirk on this one. You would hear that back. And, it just seemed like we were struggling to get going. The defensive side is a huge mystery. And I think a lot of Jags fans will agree with this, because we actually came out pretty hot to start the year. I think where it dipped was at some point in time, we were relying pretty heavily on our second linebackers to cover, some running backs that would, go out and catch passes in the flat, or you'll have some receivers do, a quick out, and then we'll have a linebacker needing to cover a cross or a flat, things like that. And we have two rookie linebackers and Chad Muma and Devin Lloyd that are really still learning the game. It's really helpful they had Foya Luakin, who's one of our star linebackers, helping them out, but they've been a little bit of a liability in pass coverage. So people started to open us up a little bit, and I think credit to the defensive coordinator. He was able to move some guys around, start moving Travon Walker lined up as a defensive lineman instead of a linebacker. These kinds of small adjustments that really helped out, and then Shaq Griffin kicking him out and putting Darius Williams in opposite side of Tyson Campbell, that helped out as well. So we made some personnel changes, and I think we're starting to see the benefits of that now. But still, I have to be a little critical of the defense. In my view, we're a base 3-4. Sometimes we switch to a 4-3, but I think we should just be a full-time 4-3 defense, and I think we need to play more press coverage. We play a little bit too off. And that's going to worry me a bit against the Chiefs, because, Kadarius Toney's a very fast, quick receiver. He did some damage against us when we played the Chiefs earlier this year. And you already got a monster and Travis Kelce and Jerick McKinney got to cover. So it's going to be a tough game for the defense for us. That's no doubt.
I'd like to go back to the game last week, the playoff game. And I know you and I were tweeting a little bit about that game. And at one point in time, we said, I said, oh, wow, it looks like it's over. And you're like, no, it's still good. And then a little bit later down the line, you were like, okay, now it's over, kind of. And then they came back. What do you credit that comeback to? Because Trevor Lawrence in that first half, it was the first time all season that I actually saw him basically being frustrated as a quarterback. It was the only time all season that, because they were complimenting him earlier before the game on all the talk radio and talk show parts, where they were saying, you never get flustered on the sideline. You're always level-headed. You always come out ready to go. And then you saw him a couple of times, like tossing his helmet off, not really tossing it, but like taking it off aggressively, being visibly upset. What do you feel is the turning point of that game? Because Joe and I were talking about this earlier, and we feel like it is we gave a little bit of credit to the defense in that game, because they did not have the short fields in the second half. Trevor Lawrence put them in bad positions in the first half. They didn't get those bad positions in the second half. So in your mind, just watching the game and seeing it through to the end, because a lot of people either went to sleep. I saw a lot of Chargers fans on TikTok actually went to sleep. They woke up and they lost, and they're like, huh? What? What do you credit the win to? Do you credit more towards Trevor Lawrence? Do you credit to Doug Pederson and say, hey, we got these guys together? Or do you credit it to the defense with not breaking when they could have broken completely?
Yeah, that game was a great game to watch.
Sure was.
It's what I think I think it's what every fan wants to see happen, where your team's just getting the dog, your butts kicked, and your team rallies. I mean, that's just a sign that if you're a young team like our team is, and we have a new coach and we're going a different direction in years past, now where we're headed. We're headed for greatness. That's it. To me, I saw everything I needed to see out of this game. Whether or not we go on to win it all, which I think we are. I think we're going to win the Super Bowl this year, and I'm not even remotely, doubting that for now. Unless I see something, we lay a huge egg in the first half again. I'm like, okay, maybe this time we're gonna get closed out this time. I really don't think so. I think we come out firing all cylinders. But for that game, really, it's just what got us back into it was the culture of the team. And that, we have good leaders on the team now. I would say, Trevor, yeah, you could say he made mistakes. I think it was just, you got to give credit to the Chargers defense. They kind of had the game plan figured out, and they sat on the ball. So we like to get our guys open quick, get them the ball quick, and we like to have long drives where we get 6 yards, 7 yards, 6 yards, 7 yards, and we're just driving, and we're dinking and dunking. And then we'll do a play action. We'll do a play action, and then we'll do a bomb, boom, and we'll incorporate that in. But primarily, if we can't get those quick passes, those quick completions going, Trevor's going to lean into forcing things. He does this. I've been seeing this happen all year. He'll force balls when, he feels like he needs to make a play. And I think that's good because I want the quarterback to lead the team in that way. I want him to take ownership. I want him to get frustrated. I want him to make plays. And, as much as I want to, share the responsibility, I want it to be on him. Pro Bowl, great quarterbacks, take the responsibility, and he did after going down. And the defense just rallied around him. I think, they saw how well he's been playing the past couple of weeks, and they're like, you know what, if we keep giving him a chance, it's going to click. It's going to happen. And I think a couple things went our way. And, eventually things just went, and the momentum came back. We're in our home stadium. They don't want to go out like that. And they're a team that's went through some difficult losses in the past. And, they're just not going to accept losing big like that. They're going to fight and claw. And I love that about our team. But yeah, I have to say, they had our number in the beginning.
As you're saying that, like, the culture to me was exactly the difference. I think of when I was watching that game, full disclosure, I had money on the Jags, but it was mostly because I figured the Chargers would charger it up and implode because that's what the Chargers culture is. And to me, there were two big important moments, both in the first half, of where it really showed this. After the second interception, which arguably should have been a flag, happens, the defense didn't just roll over and say, you're going right down the field on us, whatever. It'll be 14. But they held them to 10. And then on the second, or I believe it was the next interception, they held them to another field goal. So then it was a realm where it was like the defense is still in this. And right at the end of the half, I think the play of the game is the touchdown right at the end of the first half. Because it felt like that reawoke in the entire stadium. And, I stand by this. People think it's crazy because you guys let up 30 points. I think of all of the individual units that played all weekend, with the exception of maybe the Niners offense, the Jaguars defense was the best of all 12 of them because they never quit. They were given a lot of dirty hands, but they easily could have let up 42. And they didn't. They kept going. And that second half is defensive wonder. That is, we know you're going to run on us because we know you're going to try to kill the clock, and you ain't doing it. I mean, every single first down, it was 3 or less. You're going to have an incomplete pass on third down. We're beating you. And it started from the first drive of the second half on, and the Chargers really had no answer. And, who would have thought sitting here a year ago that the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to win a game, win a playoff game nonetheless, because they have better culture than someone else. I just look at the night and day change.
It is.
Like, wow.
It is, but I think, like, the players always had it in them. Like, we had guys who, you look at some points in last year, at the very end after, we moved on from Urban, guys were coming out with their hair on fire, playing above their ability even for some of the players we have. And it's just a testament to them. They've been through a lot, and I think there's a point where it's enough is enough. And I think that clicked with them, after we went on that losing skid of 4 or 5 games straight where we just lost. And it's just like, man, you know what? We're gonna come out, and every game's a playoff game. Basically, we're gonna come out and fight every game, win or loss. We're gonna give it everything, and you could see it. You really see it. You hear it in the sounds of the game. Which is with the Jaguars, they put out after the game, they'll record players throughout the whole game, and you just hear it on the sidelines. You hear it between players talking to one another, coaches talking to players. They're really hungry. They have a warrior spirit, and they have to keep that if they want to be serious about winning a championship. And I think that I'm going to say it again. I think they're going to win it all this year.
Well, I agree with you. That's not completely crazy, because when you look at teams that get in a run in the second half of the season, they just go off. This is really what happens. I mean, I was personally rooting for the Steelers the same way. You guys needed Tennessee to keep imploding, which they did, and I needed Miami to keep imploding, which they did until the 11th hour. And thank you, Jets. But on that note, people are going to look at this thing and say, they're playing Mahomes. They're playing Kansas City. And as the Steelers have gotten destroyed by Kansas City in the previous 2 seasons in the playoffs, the one thing I can say is they came out incredibly slow against us in both of those games. And, Ben Roethlisberger couldn't throw the ball 6 inches, so we had no real chance. But you guys have a legit quarterback who's on the up and coming. And, imagine the statement heard across the league if Mahomes loses to Lawrence. Like, ooh. Like the 4 best quarterbacks in the NFL are playing in the AFC this weekend. And think about that. That's going to be the story if Jacksonville pulls this out.
Yeah, it's going to be the story, but I think the unsung heroes are going to come from defensive stops again. I mean, if we're going to win this game, there's 2 players that have to play well, in my opinion. If they don't play well, then we're probably losing the game. But I don't see that, because I feel like as a unit and as a
which 2 are they?
That's Travon Walker and Josh Allen.
Okay.
And what we need them to do to win the game, and if they do this well, and I have faith that they will, if they can rush outside regularly, get and deliver a pressure quarterback on Mahomes, and more importantly, prevent him from escaping the pocket and rolling out to either left or right. It doesn't really matter to me. He's the most dangerous when he has time to roll out and it's backyard football, because he could sling it anywhere. He has all these different angles he could throw it from. It doesn't matter if you've got a great zone coverage going on. He'll find a small window and fit it in there, especially when you're scrambling and you don't know where he's going. But if you know where he's going to be, you can play your assignment. If the guys can get home, or it's super tight, he'll force it in. He's had a tendency where he'll strong arm it and try to fit it in. And at that moment, we have to play opportunistic ball and pick it off. And I think that's how we win. Is we need those 2 guys to pressure from the outside, contain him, don't let him get out, have him force it, and then we need our guys to sit. We need them to sit in their zone and then break as soon as he releases it. That's how we win this game from a defensive standpoint. And I think we can do it, and we're going to surprise people when we do it, because I really do believe we're going to get that done. And then running the ball, I think, is another key to victory that we absolutely need to do, that we didn't do as much against the Chargers.
We didn't really have an opportunity against the Chargers. You're fighting the clock more so than running.
Yeah, I mean, but if we got to play our game plan, I think it's a very important for our success. Like, if we're going to win these championship games, is to not allow Trevor to get in those positions where we're playing from behind again. And part of that is we have a good running back, and our line can block very well. We need to put more runs in. I think Doug Pederson is a bit of a pass-happy kind of coach, which I'm okay with. But I just think we have such a dynamic player in Etienne that we got to find a way to get him the ball too. And we're not taking full advantage of him and his talents. And I think, this game should be a big game for him. And if they do the game plan as like I'm hoping they will, you'll see that on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, the first off, everything you said about Mahomes is completely correct with his analysis. The dude hates being hit, and rather than stepping in the pocket and uncorking one, he'd rather roll to the side and just not get hit. On that note, he is incredibly hard to get. That guy is slipping. But
we got freaks on the outside, though.
Freaks on defense is what you guys got. There is no way around that. And what I wanted to ask about Etienne here was there's this perception that he's not really a power guy. He doesn't like going with the middle, but I see him as the next and probably better in the long run version of Ekeler. And I wanted to see kind of what your thought is as someone, who just played Ekeler and saw the prep going to there, but more importantly, seeing Etienne for the duration of his career.
And Brandon, I'd like to add to that too before you get started. Could you talk a little bit about also the matchup that Jerick McKinnon is going to potentially provide for your defense? Because I see all three of those running backs, Ekeler, Etienne, and McKinnon, as their best talent is their pass catching and is their ability to get those extra yards that you might need, dump off passes. If you could just, in your thoughts there, wrap him into it as well.
Yeah. So talking about Ekeler and how he relates to Etienne, I think Etienne is a better outside runner, and he's very shifty when he's doing inside runs. He can find a way to squeeze in between two players, and then he'll fall forward like 3-4 yards. So it's fine. The problem is we can't have him be running inside too often because, and Jags fans will admit to this. He takes the hardest hits out of any running back I have ever seen in my life. That when he gets hit, it's like Sonic the Hedgehog. The coins pop out. He's got an issue where if you truck him and it's a big enough player that's hitting him out from the side, there's I think a 21 in 5 chance that ball's coming out, and that's a fumble. When Jags fans see him run the ball and he takes a big hit, we're like, oh my God, is he going to let go of the ball? And please God, don't let go of the ball. So we don't want him doing that. We want him on outside runs, when we had that T formation on the 4th and 1 play, kicking it to the outside. He's great at one-on-one. It's a foot race. He's going to win that majority of the time. What he's done, but we need to do more of, is throw him the ball more. Like Austin Ekeler gets a lot of targets. Etienne maybe has half of the targets Austin Ekeler has, but he has this similar ability to catch it and make a big play. So in terms of growth for the long term, that's where his growth is going to be at, is in the pass game and continuing to get him the ball, as a pass catcher. I would say whatever you see from him in between the tackles is the maximum what we should do with him running in between the tackles. We shouldn't be giving it to him any more in between the tackles. In fact, we'll probably need to draft a running back who can handle that duty and him, do the outside runs and pass catching. So, he's similar in that regard, that he has the ability to do it. We're just not doing it enough, and we should be. And that's going to be a big problem. I think Jerick McKinnon, similar to Austin Ekeler, I think, but it's a little bit different. Jerick McKinnon's similar to Austin Ekeler, but you also have Isaiah Pacheco in there who's lightning fast as well, that can also catch the ball. So when they're putting one or the two in, or if they find a way to put both in, it's going to be a hard assignment to figure out, okay, well, what are they trying to run, and how are they going to get one of these two guys the ball, and who's going to get the ball? If they ever decide to do that, that's going to be a huge issue. And I think for us, it's going to show more in this game because, again, we have rookie linebackers outside of Foy Luakin who can get exposed in the pass game, and we're going to need a committee to kind of cover Jerick McKinnon the same way we're going to need a committee to cover Travis Kelce. But all that starts with getting pressure, containing the pocket if it's a pass play, and guys being on their P's and Q's, to sitting on routes, and to look back at that game earlier this year to see what KC did that was successful against us, and say, look, we're taking that away from you this game. If we let them just do what they did last game, it might also result in another loss. But again, it's a huge challenge. It's probably going to be our toughest game of the year. But I think we can do it, and we have the talent and the personnel to do it. We just can't make any mistakes.
Well, as they say in the playoffs, it only gets tougher from here. So we're
Yeah.
going to continue the conversation with Brandon here on the other side of the break.
This episode is sponsored by the podcast Father and Joe. Father and Joe aims to bring individuals into a better relationship with God. Each episode discusses an element of the human experience that we all can relate to, as well as questions about faith. What are indulgences? What's going on with purgatory? Why can I mentally grasp the concept of God, but I don't feel him in my heart? During each episode of Father and Joe, we are invited to enhance our relationships, and in doing so, we will improve ourselves and society. Download Father and Joe every Tuesday. So we thank you for watching this episode of Local Football Flavor. We know there's a lot of different things you can be dealing with your time, so we appreciate you either listening or watching us in whatever way you're digesting us here today. So we here at the episode want to try to request helping us out in one of three different ways, because all three ways will help us. First is the analytics. If you can either click like or subscribe on whatever platform you're watching us on, it makes a tremendous difference, as those algorithms kind of control what our popularity will be, and you, our listeners, are the only one that can help us win those analytics games. So by clicking like and subscribe, it makes a tremendous deal for us, and leaving reviews and comments help tremendously as well. So that's what we ask as you as a listener to do. If you're interested in the show and you'd like to be a guest on the program, please reach out to us. We love talking to people, and it's our conversation about your favorite team, letting people know what's really going on that the national media normally misses. So we would love to have those conversations with you. And the third way is the sponsors. As you've noticed, we've already had some sponsors reach out to us here. You can see one down here in the corner. You can easily be in the scroller along the bottom, having your own personal message, as well as all other fun things like controlling the jersey I'm going to wear, or that little teddy bear behind me can be one of your team logos things. You can maybe wear a stupid cheese head if that's what you want to do. All of those things are available by reaching out to us at localfootballflavor@gmail.com. We thank you guys very much for being a part of the show, and now let's resume to today's episode.
So yeah, as we come back on the other side here, I want to start off with an important point going back to fighting to get here and all this. Kansas City wrapped up their division 7 weeks ago. And yes, they played two playoff teams since then. They played Seattle, who, yes, playoff team, but certainly not a world beater. And then they played Cincinnati, in which case they lost. So we look at this coming into here, they've been playing tight games against Houston and Denver. So let's not act like this is going to be a complete surprise that a team that has been grinding and fighting for the last month and a half versus one that's essentially been floating through really a week's schedule. So I want to start that off as people who have been listening to this being like, this guy's crazy. He's just drinking all the hometown Kool-Aid. And the reality is that unless they got Hartman, there's no one pushing that defense back. And double team Kelsey and hit the running backs hard. You're a team that can do that, certainly, with how fast and aggressive your defense is. I like the starting point there.
Yeah. I think. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that we as we look at the Jaguars and as we look at the Kansas City Chiefs, I want to just kind of go back to that Kansas City Houston game. And that game was tight almost the whole entire game. And I know you and I were talking, Brandon, I know Joe and I talked about this too, is Houston's defense is actually what Brandon and I were trying to do the other day was trying to figure out who the worst defense in the league is and the worst offense in the league is. And we came to an agreement that it wasn't Houston's defense at all, because they're actually really, really decent. And so when we look at how the Jags defense stacks up player to player, matchup to Kansas City, we know that Mahomes is going to be a problem. We know that pass rush is really going to take it. But do you feel that if that pass rush is successful, that they can neutralize the threat that maybe Kelsey would give to them? Do you think they neutralize the outside speed of Kadarius Toney. Do you think they can? Which piece would you rather them give up as a defensive unit to sacrifice in order to make the plays that we know that they can make? Do we give Kelsey room? Do we take it away? Do we open the top up for Kadarius Toney? Because you can't do it all, right? So
Right.
what would you see them as sacrificing that would be acceptable enough to get them to the next game here?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I do not want to have happen is for them to attack our linebackers. So if I had to give up anything, because they're two rookies. If we kill their confidence early on in the game, it's gonna be a long road to kind of fighting our way throughout what they're gonna be throwing at us, because they're gonna have a lot of different looks, considering the personnel they have on offense. So if there's any player I would be okay with them giving it, but we have to absolutely shut down, I guess I would be happy with Kadarius Toney and the receivers having a bit of success. We really have to shut down the running backs and Kelsey, because they can sustain drives and they can continue it, where if we give up big plays, we can get the ball right back and we can try to slug it out with them. We've shown that we can come back from a 27, point deficit, and we hit and pretty much scored on every single drive we got back. So if we can play and take that success into this week, and we just come out firing, which I expect us to play, how I expect us to play, then if we turn into a slug match and they're doing big plays, we're doing big plays, I think that's where I would be okay with watching the game as a fan. I'm like, you know what, we're in this and we can pull this out. We just need our defense to, pick it up in the final fourth quarter. I have a lot of confidence that they can do it. It's going to be tough, obviously, because we're playing on the road, which makes it a little bit more difficult than, instead of playing at home. But I have faith in the guys. I really do.
Yeah, and to the point of your defense, the best way to make a defense on fire, which is what they got to experience the second half last time, is they're on the bench. You can't make a mistake whenever your offense is on the field. That's a fundamental rule of the game. So the more that Etienne can get involved and the more you guys can get your short rhythm going, the better off. Because that's the one thing that the second half offense shift from the first half was because he was pushing the ball more, essentially because he had to, the underneath stuff was opening up. That final drive, he wasn't throwing bombs. He was really just taking 8-yard out and run, almost like the Niners in that regard. And it was beautiful to watch. And I hope that sense of Kansas City is scared of the over the top so that you guys can really get the underneath going. And I would love to see 20 minutes of possession in the first half. I mean, that would just make my day.
Yeah, I think, going off of that, I'm not as impressed with the Kansas City defense to kind of, the game record they have is Chris Jones. Okay. So in my view, if he just goes off, then it's going to have to be like, we got to get the ball out quick. And they're expecting that because if, that's our game plan for the most part anyway. So if they force us to have to get the ball out quick and we can't let plays develop, play action here and there, and we can't get that developed because, Chris Jones is wrecking the game, they have the formula on how to beat us. Basically just mimic what the Chargers did in the first half. Sit on the ball, sit on the routes. They're going to get it out quick and jump it. And go for, try and play opportunistic ball on defense and pick it off. So if it really, from a defensive side of the ball, I told you how we need to win. From an offensive side of the ball, the way we need to win is the offensive line needs to neutralize Chris Jones, and we have to get the running game going early to make them respect, our run game, and we can start doing different things like play action and quick game. We can't lead off passing right away. We have to lead off running the ball. We have to lead off with play action first to make them, respect our offense in that regard. And that'll open up things, later in the game.
So having watched Pederson all year, what do you think the likelihood he does that is?
I don't know, because he's done so many unpredictable calls, like going for the 2-point conversion, where people are like, why would you do that? Field goal gets you to tie the game and to go to OT. So he's been doing calls like this all season. So it's really a mixed bag. Like we're we don't know. I mean, if it's me talking and I'm the coach, I just illustrated to you what I would do.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a recipe that we can, really get after Kansas City with and win the game outright. But he might have some stuff up his sleeve. He's got the Philly special play. I wouldn't be surprised if we throw in an onside kick at some point in the game, or a fake punt, and we pass it, something like that. I would not be surprised in the slightest. But knowing Doug, I think, he's going to trust his quarterback, and, we'll probably throw it a little bit more than what I would like. And a lot of Jags fans will come out and say, we got to run the ball. But, we can't break the formula that's gotten us here, I'd say. So, I trust the coach. Whatever he decides, we'll make it happen.
Yeah, and I'm super curious. So I want to go back to just speaking a little bit about Kansas City in reference to this game coming up. I want to go back to that game against Tennessee that Kansas City played. And, I mean, Patrick Mahomes ended up throwing for 442 yards, some ludicrous amount of yards. But it's the touchdown production that I'd like to kind of go to, where he only threw one touchdown pass in that game. And I was talking with Joe via text that night about this game, and I said, if there would have been a better quarterback on Tennessee's team that night, Tennessee would have beat Kansas City, and it would not have even been. It wouldn't have gone to overtime. So thinking of some close matchups that Kansas City had this year, and looking at basically kind of the defeat that the Jags had, where it wasn't really close at all. The Jags are a different team at this point in the year. Absolutely. Do you think that we know without beyond a shadow of a doubt 1,000% that Trevor Lawrence is light years, like a million light years ahead of Malik Willis? Is that defense at the point where they could hold them from the end zone in the way that Tennessee did, that will give Trevor Lawrence that confidence that he needs to motivate his guys? Because to me, when I see Kansas City's defense play, and you mentioned Jones, when I see their defense playing, I see a lot of opportunities for downfield threats. I see, Nick Bolton is a good player as a linebacker, and L'Jarius Sneed is a really good cornerback as well. Those three pieces provide them with a lot of oomph on the defense. But when they're playing, like Joe said, when they're playing teams that don't have any oomph on offense, it works. It really, really works. But when they play teams that have really good offenses, when they play teams that have really good offenses, it doesn't really work as well. So when you said earlier about, you see them coming out firing on all cylinders, if they happen to get the lead in that game, do you think they can put the nail in the coffin for the Kansas City Chiefs, and the defense will just be like, yes, we've got this, trust us, instead of the defense saying, okay, we trust you this time? Do you see that happening, that they could be the team that puts it down on the Chiefs and says, no, you aren't coming back, Patrick Mahomes. We are going to keep this lead because our offense is light years ahead of some of the offenses that you faced in the last several weeks of the season.
And to illustrate that point with a couple of facts, one of the arguments you'd have for one of the worst offenses of the year last year is the Broncos, without a doubt. And he put up 24 and 28 against that defense when they didn't average 17 a game. So to that point, that's over a touchdown a game worse against Russell Wilson's team this year. That was bad.
Yeah. So in terms of the defense, I have to remind myself, they're playing in Arrowhead. They're not playing in Jacksonville. So I think if you ask me, will the Chiefs, if they're down early, find a way back into the game? Absolutely. I think so. I think when you play at home and, it's playoffs, you really try to put – it's desperation. You try to take whatever works. And I feel like the thing with the Chiefs is they may not have gone to their bag of tricks earlier in the year because they've, kind of won their division outright pretty early. So I'm sure they have some stuff saved up for us. I have no doubt. At the same time, though, I think the guys on our defensive side of the ball, some of them, you don't hear about them in the national media, but they're playing at, they're having career highs, really, some of them. And, they're playing their best ball at the right time of the year. Would I be surprised if we put the nail in the coffin? No. But would I also be surprised if, where we have a lead and Kansas City comes back and ties it? No, I wouldn't be surprised at either. It really could go from a defensive side of the ball either way, because I just don't know what Kansas City has saved up that they haven't shown yet. I feel like they haven't shown their hand, but they will show their hand in the first half. So we're going to know if they have something special or it's just the same old recipe that they've been riding with, that they've just kind of been coasting with the past couple of weeks. So, we're going to see a lot in the first half, but I would not be surprised if we take an early lead and we just keep scoring. And it's one of those things that they just don't stop us offensively, or they don't stop our offense from their side defensively.
It is a gimmicky defense. There's no way around it. As you said, they only really have one stud, and it's they live and die by the blitz. When it works, people praise him, and then when it's done, it's done.
I hate to bring this up because I know you guys are Steelers fans, but I'm going to do this. So I could foresee how this game goes when we played the Steelers in the playoffs, and we just had a monster win over you guys, and everyone's like. But then the Steelers found a way. I think it was they found a way back in the game, if I'm not mistaken. But
you only won by one. It was 42-41, if I recall.
No, I know. But we were like I said, we were scoring. We had a lead, but you guys closed the lead. I could see the game going like that against KC. Same thing.
Sure. So let's, as we're concluding here, let's say it's Saturday night. You guys are in post-game victory. You start fighting through your hangover the next morning, Sunday morning, and you're saying, who do you want to play? Do you want to go to Cincinnati or do you want to go to Buffalo? What does that Sunday look like to you?
So there's two so I'll give you two answers. Personally, I'd like to play the Bills because I don't like the Bills. Personally. Every Bills fan I've had a personal interaction with has not been good. So let's just leave it at that. But as a fan and the Jaguars fan base, I know that we want to play the Bengals. I think in that regard, we want to, have Trevor versus Joe Burrow kind of repeat of the national championship game. That whole storyline and, the whole scandal with Urban and his bar in Cincinnati, him, not going on the plane right back home after the Cincinnati game. So there's some story behind that there. So I envision, probably most Jags fans want to see them play the Bengals, but me personally, I would prefer to play the Bills just because I don't like the Bills. So that's what
Well, I got a question for you, Brandon, as we do wrap up here. Joe and I were discussing this, just shooting it around. Out of the 8 quarterbacks still in the playoffs at this moment in time, where do you feel like Trevor Lawrence ranks among those 8 quarterbacks, assuming that you put Daniel Jones at 8?
Well, I don't know if I would put Daniel Jones at 8, but I would say he's top 3. I don't know where in the top 3, but I would say he's top 3.
Of the other 3 AFC ones left, which one is he ahead of? Because it's pretty obvious the AFC has the top 4 right now. Which one's he ahead of?
I like Jalen Hurts, to be honest with you. I really like what he does in terms of just how he runs that offense. Because I look at the quarterback like, how do you run your offense? How do you put up points? And, he can do things with his legs. He can do things with his arm. Obviously, I don't think he has the best arm out of all the quarterbacks. And his scheme is very favorable for him. But their offense puts up points. You can't deny it. So he's in the conversation for the top 3 for me. But it's Patrick Mahomes and Trevor in that top 3 too. And then if I have to make an order here, right after that you'd put Burrow and Josh Allen, and then after that would be Purdy and Daniel Jones and Dak.
Sounds like Dak is last for you.
Yeah. I think Dak and Purdy. I guess I don't know a lot about Purdy, and it seems like a one-hit kind of wonder. Like I feel like his wake-up game may come, but who knows? They're just riding a wave right now over there. So. I'd probably say Dak is probably, if I had to, probably Dak and Purdy might be tied for 8th, just in terms of ability and just the fact that I don't really know much about Purdy myself. But yeah, Dak is definitely more 7 or 8, somewhere there.
Yeah, fair enough. So certainly great talk, and one thing going forward, regardless of how this season ends. If there's one part of this team that you want to get addressed in the offseason, what would you want to change?
So like if I build teams and this is just my perception of how I think, the modern NFL would be going. The things that I feel like we need to have is we need to keep our speed at all costs. We have good speed at wide receiver. We need to keep adding to it. I think that's something you got to draft for every year. Speed, no matter what. You can't let your team, age and show their age with, lack of speed. So that's thing number one. So within the offseason, we got to, whatever we decide to do, we need to retain guys because we don't have a lot of cap this offseason. In fact, we're probably in the negative, to be honest. So we probably need to let go of some guys. But the guys that I would keep around is you got to keep the guys with speed. And if you can't keep them, you got to draft it. For me, I think we need to lock down our nickel corner. I think we're going to probably move on from some players at corner that, their contracts are expiring. We need to get fast guys at the corner position because, the NFL is getting faster every year. So that's thing number one I really look at. I want to pair also a tight end with Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram's our mismatch receiving tight end. Kind of want to all you can do, all-purpose tight end, like a Hawkinson or a Kittle, something like that, Mark Andrews. Guys who can block, who could also catch. I want to have the 2 tight end set where you don't know where we're going to go with it. And that'll give some more looks to opposing defenses, and it'll kind of just add another layer to our offense. And we're already bringing in Calvin Ridley. We traded for him during the year, so he's going to be on the roster next year. So I think, for the wide receiver position, we're set. We add in a tight end in the draft, get fast at corner, bring back the guys we have. And then, with every other pick, just load up the defensive line. Those guys are rotational. Just load up picks and just, whatever else we have, just pick a defensive lineman until the wheels fall off. Because those guys, for our system anyway, they rush in bunches. They'll come in, they'll come out. We switch guys all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we just need to keep guys fresh and to round out the depth chart with some new guys who offer something maybe that the current defensive linemen don't really give us. So that's where I would go. Cornerback, defensive lineman, tight end. Those are 3 main needs.
Beautiful.
And for 30 seconds or less, if you could bring back any Jags player, being nostalgic for a moment, to fit on this current team right now, who might you pick?
For this current roster?
Mm-hmm.
To fill the current roster, if you could put any
saying this guy's in his
historical
prime.
Jags player, who would you pick?
I mean, Jimmy Smith. We don't have Calvin Ridley right now, but if we had Calvin Ridley right now and he's playing at all pro level, I don't think anybody's stopping us, period.
See, my answer would be Maurice.
Maurice Jones-Drew?
Yeah.
Maurice Jones-Drew is nice. I like Baselli.
Baselli, but we have a young tackle that subbed in for Cam Robinson who got injured, and he's been playing great, Walker Little. So I see that, but I think just more weapons, more offensive firepower, and with this day and age, if we got speed, we got threats all over the place. That's what makes you a perennial contender for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, my answer was Jones-Drew because you said you needed a power guy at the middle, and he was good at that.
think my audio cut out. Sorry, guys. Let me see. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I think my audio just got cut out. Sorry
About that. But like I said, the reason I was saying Jones Drew is how you were saying you need a power guy at the middle, and Jones Drew had that.
You can, but we've had a lot of success with outside runs and then screen. Yeah, I think it would be nice, but it's just really for goal line stuff. We really need a guy who can chug through 3-4 yards consistently when we get to the goal line, because we're passing it a lot of the times when we get within 10-15 yard line. And that could be
so basically you need a Wisconsin running back.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. A big guy, bring him in. I'm happy with that. But you can find those guys in the draft, in the 5th, 6th round.
Oh yeah.
So I think we'll probably pick some guy late, but like I said, top 3 needs: defensive lineman, tight end. Just add another layer, to the offense, and then corner.
Well, beautiful. Well, this has been incredibly fun, Brandon. We want to give you a chance to go full screen, give us some final thoughts, anything you want to promote or anything of that nature. Get a chance to take it. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so I'm going to be starting up my own channel. I just created it recently. Follow me at Brandon_Moore. My handle's profile's name's InnerJag. I love the Jaguars. It's been my favorite team for, 22 years. I think we're onto something special with Trevor. We have a new dynasty about to blossom. I think in the coming years we're going to be perennial AFC South champions. Can't wait to see what the future holds for that. And yeah, I'm just excited for Saturday. And I just got to do one thing for Jags Nation.
Yes. Love it.
Well, we can't add any stronger than that. Thank you all, team players, for being with us. Click like and subscribe. We'll be with you next time.